She entered the small underground cabin, and the secret inside changed her story. Sarah Mitchell felt her heart racing as she pushed the heavy wooden door she had just discovered hidden on the rural property inherited from her grandmother in Aspen. At 27, a single mother of 2 young children, she never would have imagined that this strange construction buried in the hill held secrets that would change her life forever. The discovery happened by chance during a morning walk with 9-year-old Tyler and little Emma, just 8 months old, in her arms. Tyler ran after a butterfly and tripped over something that looked like a rock, but upon closer inspection, Sarah realized it was a rusty doorknob. Digging with her hands, she revealed a wooden door partially buried by years of vegetation. "Mom, what is this?" asked Tyler, his eyes shining with curiosity. "I don't know, sweetie. Let's see," Sarah replied, though a strange feeling took hold of her chest. The door creaked open, revealing a stone staircase descending into a small underground room. The morning sunlight partially illuminated the interior, showing something that made Sarah tremble: dozens of yellowed envelopes scattered on a rustic wooden table. With Emma firmly held in one arm, Sarah carefully descended the steps, while Tyler followed closely behind. The air was stuffy, but there was no dampness or mold. Someone had sealed this place well. The first envelope she picked up had her name handwritten in delicate cursive: "To Sarah Mitchell, my beloved daughter." The date on the postmark showed 25 years ago. Sarah felt her legs weaken. "Mom, are you okay?" Tyler noticed the paleness on his mother's face. "Yes, honey, I'm just surprised," Sarah lied, knowing she wasn't okay at all. She had grown up believing she was abandoned as a baby and raised by her Uncle George and Aunt Dorothy after her parents died in an accident. That had always been the version she knew, but these letters addressed to her, written when she was still a child, suggested a completely different story. With trembling hands, she opened the first letter. The handwriting was the same as on the envelope, delicate and careful. "My dear Sarah, today you turn 2 and I couldn't be there to sing happy birthday. I know you are well cared for, but my heart breaks every day away from you. One day I will explain everything, my daughter. Until then, know that you are loved more than the stars in the sky. Your mother who never forgets, Elizabeth." Sarah felt tears burning her eyes. Elizabeth. This name had never been mentioned by anyone in the family. Uncle George always said he didn't know who her biological parents were, that she had arrived through a children's shelter. She picked up another letter, this one dated 3 years later. "Sarah, my angel. I heard from the neighbor that you started school. How I wish I could be there to see your first day. I have been saving money every month in a special account for you. When you grow up, everything will be yours. I haven't given up on one day being able to hug my girl again." "Mum, why are you crying?" Tyler gently touched Sarah's arm. "It's nothing, sweetie. They're tears of surprise." Sarah wiped her face, trying to process the information. A special account? Money saved for decades? If this were true, why did Uncle George never mention anything? And why were these letters hidden in a buried cabin instead of being delivered? She kept reading, letter after letter. Each one revealed more disturbing details. Her biological mother was not only alive when they were written, but was also actively trying to maintain contact. She mentioned attempted visits that were denied, phone calls that went unanswered, gifts she sent that apparently never reached Sarah. A letter from when she was 15 years old drew special attention. "Sarah, I know you're a young lady now. I tried once more to talk to your Uncle George, but he threw me out of the house saying you want nothing to do with me. Can that be true, my daughter? Did you grow up hating me? Even so, I won't give up. I've opened a small tailoring shop here in Boulder, and everything I earn is with you in mind." Sarah vaguely remembered a loud argument at the house when she was 15. Uncle George had gotten very upset and left the house for hours. When he returned, he said it was work problems and that she shouldn't worry. Now it all made sense. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. The most shocking discovery came in a more recent letter from just 5 years ago. "Sarah, I got your address through an acquaintance who works at the records office. I heard you got married and are expecting a baby. How my heart rejoiced. I'm going to be a grandmother, but I also know your husband left you while you were pregnant. My daughter, I'm in a position to help now. The tailoring business has grown, and I have my own house. Please give me a chance to meet my grandson. The account I opened for you has enough money for you to live with dignity." Sarah had to sit down on an old chair in the corner of the cabin. 5 years ago, she was pregnant with Tyler and going through one of the worst phases of her life. Her husband had indeed abandoned her, leaving her with no money and no support. She remembered days when she barely had food to eat, working late at a sewing factory to manage to support the pregnancy. How different could her life have been if she had received these letters, if she had known she had a mother looking for her, offering help and love? "Tyler, we're going home now," said Sarah, putting some letters in her bag. "I need to talk to your Uncle George." "But Mom, there are more letters here." Tyler pointed to the table. "I know, sweetheart, we'll come back later. Right now I need to clear some things up." The walk back to the main house was silent, but Sarah's mind was racing. How many lies had she uncovered? Why did Uncle George hide Elizabeth's existence? And most importantly, was her biological mother still alive? The rural property where they had lived for 2 years was an unexpected gift. When Grandmother Margaret passed away, she left the farm to Sarah, who at the time was unemployed and about to be evicted from her rented apartment in the city. Uncle George had insisted they move there, saying it would be better to raise the children in the countryside. Now Sarah wondered if there were other reasons behind that insistence. The 2-bedroom house was simple but comfortable, with a wide porch overlooking the mountains. Uncle George, 65 years old, had lived in a smaller house at the back of the property since they moved. He helped with the farm chores and took care of some chickens and a small vegetable garden. "Uncle George," Sarah called out as soon as they arrived. He was fixing a fence near the chicken coop, sweaty and focused on his work. When he saw the serious expression on Sarah's face, he frowned. "What happened, girl? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I found an underground cabin on the property." Sarah got straight to the point. "And inside it, dozens of letters addressed to me." The color drained from Uncle George's face. The hammer slipped from his hands and fell to the ground with a dull thud. "What cabin?" "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied, but his voice trembled. "Letters from a woman named Elizabeth, who says she's my mother," Sarah continued, watching her uncle's every reaction. "Letters from 25 years ago up to 5 years ago, all addressed to me, all speaking of attempts to contact me that were blocked." Uncle George crouched down to pick up the hammer, clearly buying time to think of a response. "Sarah, you know you grew up with me and your Aunt Dorothy after your parents passed away. This Elizabeth must be some disturbed person who made up this story. There are a lot of crazy people out there." "Uncle, she knew details of my life. She knew when I got married, when Tyler was born, when Dorothy got sick." Sarah moved closer to him. "How would a stranger know all that?" "I don't know, girl. Maybe someone in the neighborhood told her. You know how small-town folks gossip." But Sarah noticed he avoided looking her in the eyes. She had known Uncle George since she was a child and knew when he was lying. It was the same behavior as when he hid that he had eaten the last piece of cake or when he said he hadn't received the electric bill. "She mentions a bank account opened in my name. Money saved for decades," Sarah insisted. "Is that also made up?" Uncle George's discomfort became even more evident. He stood up and started walking toward his house, clearly trying to end the conversation. "Sarah, these things about inheritance and money always attract opportunists. Don't believe everything you read. You have a good life here. The boys are growing up healthy. Why stir up things from the past?" "Because the past belongs to me." Sarah raised her voice, making Emma whimper in her arms. "Because I have the right to know who I am and where I came from." Tyler, who had stayed quiet during the whole discussion, approached his mother. "Mom, is Uncle George lying?" he asked with the typical innocence of a child. The boy's direct question made Uncle George stop walking. He turned to them, and Sarah saw something in his eyes she had never noticed before: guilt. "Tyler, adults sometimes make difficult choices to protect the people they love," he said, his voice lower now. "Protect from what?" Sarah moved even closer. From a mother's love? From financial support when I needed it most? Tears began to stream down the face of the man who had raised her. Sarah had never seen him cry before. You don't understand, Sarah. That woman, she wasn't good for you. She came here making promises, saying she had changed. But I knew she would abandon you again. Again? Sarah felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. So you admit she really is my mother? Uncle George ran his hands over his face, wiping away the tears. When he looked at Sarah again, there was resignation in his eyes. Sit here on the porch, girl. I think the time has come for you to know the whole truth. Tyler ran to get a chair for his mother, while Sarah settled Emma on her lap, preparing to hear the story that had been hidden from her for almost 3 decades. Elizabeth Carter was your mother, yes? Uncle George began, looking at the horizon. She was my younger sister. She was only 16 when you were born. Sarah felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Uncle George was her real uncle, not just by affection, as she had always thought. She was irresponsible, Sarah. Addicted to drink, got involved with a married man, would disappear for days without a word. When you were born, she could barely take care of herself, let alone a baby. But the letters show a different person, Sarah protested. She talked about work, about her own home, about money saved for me. Years later, yes. But in the beginning she disappeared for 2 years, Sarah. 2 years. She left you with me and Dorothy and vanished. When she came back, we had already grown attached to you as our own daughter, and you were so little you didn't even remember her. Sarah tried to process the information. Vague memories from early childhood tried to form in her mind, but nothing was clear enough. She wanted to take you away, Uncle George continued. She said she had gotten a job in a big city, that she was going to give you a better life. But how could I believe her? She had already abandoned you once. And the letters? Why did you hide the letters? Because I didn't want you to get hurt. His voice broke. Dorothy and I couldn't have children, Sarah. You were our chance to be parents. When Elizabeth would show up, you'd get confused, cry, ask why you had 2 mothers. It was better if she didn't come around anymore. Better for whom? Sarah stood up, indignant. For you or for me? For all of us. Elizabeth was unreliable, Sarah. She'd show up, promise the moon, then disappear for months. Dorothy was worried you'd get attached and then be abandoned again. Tyler watched the argument with wide eyes, trying to understand why the 2 adults he loved most were fighting. Uncle, where are the documents for this bank account she mentions? Sarah controlled her voice, realizing she was scaring her son. I don't know about any account, girl. That must be something she made up to lure you in. But something in the way he averted his gaze made Sarah suspect there were more lies to uncover. I'm going to the city tomorrow, she announced. I'm going to look for this Elizabeth Carter and hear her side of the story. Sarah, don't do that. Uncle George stood up, looking desperate. Elizabeth might have changed, or she might not even be alive anymore. Don't go stirring up a hornet's nest. You have a good life here. Don't ruin it. A good life built on lies isn't a good life, Sarah replied, determined. I need the truth, Uncle. All these letters show a woman who never stopped loving me. I deserve at least to hear her side. That night, Sarah could barely sleep. After putting the children to bed, she went back to the underground cabin with a flashlight to read the rest of the letters. Each one revealed more painful details. Elizabeth had kept all the drawings Sarah made in school that somehow reached her. She had saved clippings from the local newspaper when Sarah graduated high school. There was even a small, blurry photo of Sarah, pregnant with Tyler, taken from a distance. The level of detail and care in the letters convinced Sarah that Elizabeth really was her mother, and that the love described there was genuine. One of the more recent letters mentioned the address of the tailoring shop in Boulder and a contact phone number. The next morning, Sarah woke with an iron determination. She would leave the children with Uncle George and drive to Boulder to find Elizabeth. It would be a trip of only 2 hours, but one that could change her life forever. Mom, why are you sad? Tyler asked during breakfast. I'm not sad, my love. I'm confused. I found out some things about our family that I didn't know before. Bad things. I don't know yet. That's why I need to find out the truth. Uncle George appeared in the kitchen when Sarah was washing the dishes. He looked like he had slept poorly, with deep dark circles and disheveled hair. "Sarah, I thought a lot last night," he began. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I hid too much from you." Sarah stopped washing the plates and turned to him. "Are you going to tell me the whole truth? Elizabeth really did save money for you. There's an account at the National Savings Bank that she opened when you were little, but I never told you because I was afraid you would leave and I'd be left alone." The confession hit Sarah like a bucket of cold water. Uncle George had deprived her of financial security out of selfishness. "How much money, Uncle?" "I don't know exactly. But Elizabeth deposited money religiously every month. There must be a considerable amount by now." Sarah leaned on the sink, feeling her head spin. Throughout all the difficult times she faced, especially when Tyler was a baby and she didn't even have money for diapers, there had been money saved for her. Money that could have completely changed her path. "Where is the documentation for this account? Elizabeth left some papers with me before I forbade her from coming here. They're kept in my room." "Go get them, now." Uncle George left with his head down, returning minutes later with a yellowed envelope. Inside, Sarah found bank documents, certificates, and a letter from Elizabeth addressed to her, with instructions on how to access the account when she turned 18. "Why did you never give this to me when I turned 18? Sarah demanded an answer. "Because I knew you would look for her, and I didn't want to lose my daughter." "I am not your daughter," Sarah exploded. "You stole me from my real mother." The words came out harsher than she intended, and she saw the pain in the eyes of the man who had raised her. But the anger was too intense to worry about diplomacy at that moment. Tyler appeared in the kitchen, clearly upset by the argument. "Why are you fighting?" he asked with eyes full of tears. Sarah knelt to her son's height and hugged him. "Sometimes adults disagree about important things, my love, but that doesn't mean we stop loving each other." She looked at Uncle George over Tyler's head. "I'm going to Boulder today. I'm going to find Elizabeth and hear her version of the story. When I come back, we'll talk about how to move forward." "And if she doesn't want anything to do with you after all this time?" Uncle George asked, a last attempt to dissuade her. "Then at least I'll know the truth, and that's already more than I've had for 27 years. The trip to Boulder was tense. Sarah drove in silence, thinking of all the possibilities. Elizabeth could be happy to see her, or resentful of the lost years. She could be sick, or even have recently passed away. The last letter was from 5 years ago. A lot could have changed. The address led Sarah to a small tailoring shop in the city centre. Elizabeth's tailoring was written in simple letters on the facade. Sarah parked in front and watched the activity through the shop window. There were several women working at sewing machines, but none seemed old enough to be her mother. She took a deep breath and went in. "Good morning. I'm looking for Elizabeth Carter," she said to a woman who was helping a customer at the counter. "Elizabeth? She's in the back dealing with the new fabrics. Are you a client of hers?" "It's personal business." The woman pointed to a door at the back of the shop. Sarah walked slowly, her heart pounding. Passing through the door, she found a woman with graying hair organizing rolls of fabric on a high shelf. When the woman turned around, Sarah felt the air leave her lungs. The eyes were identical to hers. The shape of the face, the line of the nose, even the way of furrowing the brow was the same. There was no possible doubt this was her mother. Elizabeth froze upon seeing Sarah. The fabric roll she was holding slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. "Sarah," she whispered, as if afraid it was just a mirage. "Mom?" Sarah replied, her voice trembling. The two stared at each other for a moment that seemed to last hours. Then Elizabeth began to cry, silent tears streaming down her face. "My daughter, my dear daughter." Sarah approached slowly, as if any sudden movement could shatter the moment. When they finally embraced, they both broke down in sobs. "I never stopped looking for you," Elizabeth said between tears. "I never stopped loving you. I know. I found your letters. All of them." "The letters?" Elizabeth pulled back a little to look into Sarah's eyes. "George let you read my letters? He didn't allow anything." I found them in a hidden cabin on Grandma Margaret's property. An expression of surprise and then understanding crossed Elizabeth's face. Your grandmother, Margaret, kept the letters. Of course, she was the only one who still spoke to me after George forbade me from showing up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. They sat in a small room attached to the storage area, where Elizabeth used to take her breaks. Sarah observed every detail of the woman's face in front of her, searching for familiar features, lost memories from early childhood. Your grandmother Margaret was a saint, Elizabeth began. When George forbade me from seeing you, she said she would find a way for you to know the truth one day. I wrote the letters and gave them to her. I thought she was giving them to you to read. She kept them all, in an underground cabin I didn't even know existed. Margaret was always clever. She knew George would try to destroy anything that connected you to me. Sarah was still processing the information that her grandmother had been a secret ally all these years. Mum, why did Uncle George keep me away from you? He said you were irresponsible, that you had abandoned me. Elizabeth sighed deeply, as if gathering courage for a painful confession. Part of what he said is true, Sarah. When you were born, I was very young and in a terrible situation. Your father was married and left me when he found out about the pregnancy. I had no job, no home of my own. I was staying with a friend as a favor. Sarah listened in silence, realizing the story was more complex than she had imagined. I tried to take care of you alone, but it was very difficult. You cried a lot. I couldn't get work because I had no one to leave you with. I started drinking to cope with the pressure. Elizabeth's honesty was painful, but Sarah appreciated finally hearing the truth. One day I was so desperate that I took you to George's house and asked him to take care of you for just a week until I could get a job. He agreed, and you were so well cared for, so happy with him and Dorothy. And you disappeared for 2 years, Sarah completed. Yes, that is my greatest shame, daughter. I ran away like a coward. I thought you would be happier without me. But you came back. I came back different. I stopped drinking, got a job at a clothing factory, rented a small but clean house. I was determined to get my daughter back. And what happened? George said you didn't want anything to do with me anymore, that you had completely forgotten me and that seeing me would only confuse you. Dorothy agreed with him. Sarah felt anger at Uncle George growing in her chest, but she also understood their concerns. Did you try to take me anyway? I tried visits. I tried to negotiate a schedule. I offered to pay child support for them to continue caring for you. But George was inflexible. He said either I disappeared from your life forever, or he would get a court order to keep me away. And you accepted. What choice did I have, daughter? It was his word against mine. He was married, had a steady job, owned a home. I was a single mother with no references. Any judge would have sided with him. The logic was cruel, but Sarah understood the reality of the 80s and 90s, when a single mother had few rights. So I started sending letters through your grandmother. It was my way of keeping in touch, even if you didn't know. Margaret would tell me how you were growing up, how you were doing in school, when you got sick. And the bank account. I opened it when you were 3. I thought that even if I couldn't raise you, I could at least secure your financial future. I deposited every week the little I managed to save. How much is in the account now? Elizabeth stood up and went to a drawer, pulling out a folder with bank statements. The last statement from 6 months ago shows 83,000 reais. Sarah felt her legs go weak. 83,000 reais. It was more money than she had ever seen together in her entire life. Mother, all these years when I struggled, when Tyler was born and I didn't even have money for diapers. I knew, Margaret told me. I was dying to show up at your door and help, but I had promised George I wouldn't interfere in your life. A cruel promise. It was the price I paid for my past mistakes, daughter. They fell silent for a few minutes, each lost in her thoughts. Sarah looked around the small room and noticed several photographs of herself on the walls, graduation photos from when she was pregnant, even a recent photo with Tyler and Emma that she didn't remember taking. How did you get these pictures? Your grandmother gave me some. Others I took from afar when you lived in the city. I know it seems crazy. but it was my way of keeping up with your life. Sarah stood up and looked at the photos more closely. There were even childhood drawings stuck to the wall, drawings she had made in elementary school. Margaret kept everything and gave it to me, Elizabeth explained. Your report cards, schoolwork, anything that showed how my daughter was growing up. The emotion was too much for Sarah. She began to cry again, realizing how much she had lost, but also how much she had been loved without knowing it. Mother, I have 2 children now. Tyler is 9 years old and Emma is 8 months old. I know, Margaret told me. Margaret told. How I would love to meet my grandchildren. Do you want to meet them? They're at home with Uncle George. Elizabeth hesitated, clearly torn between desire and fear. Do you think George will allow it? It's not his decision anymore. I'm an adult now, and I can decide who is part of my life. They left the shop together, Elizabeth asking her employee to close up for her. During the trip back to Aspen, they talked about the lost years, filling in gaps from 25 years of separation. Elizabeth told how the tailoring business had grown, how she had managed to buy her own shop 5 years ago, how she had married a good man named Robert, who always knew about Sarah and supported any attempt at reconciliation. Robert has grown children from a previous marriage. He understands what it's like to love a child that isn't biologically his, but he also understands a biological mother's love. Sarah talked about her hardships, about her ex-husband's abandonment, about the sleepless nights working to support Tyler, about the relief of having inherited her grandmother's farm. Margaret left the property to you because she knew that one day you would discover the truth about your origin. It was her plan from the beginning. When they arrived at the farm, Uncle George was on the porch waiting. He saw Elizabeth get out of the car next to Sarah and froze. Elizabeth, what are you doing here? I came to meet my grandchildren, George, and to talk to you. Tyler and Emma appeared on the porch, curious about the visitor. Sarah picked up Emma and called Tyler closer. Tyler, Emma, I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is Elizabeth, my mother, your grandmother. Tyler's eyes widened. In his child's logic, he only knew Grandma Dorothy, who had passed away the previous year. Mum, I thought Grandma Dorothy was your mother. Grandma Dorothy raised me with so much love, my son. But Elizabeth is the one who gave birth to me. Sometimes families are more complicated than they seem. Elizabeth knelt down to Tyler's level, her eyes shining as she saw her grandson up close for the first time. Hi, Tyler. I've heard so much about you. Your great-grandmother Margaret told me you're very smart and like to play in the woods. Tyler looked at Sarah, silently asking for confirmation that everything was okay. When she smiled and nodded positively, he approached Elizabeth. Is it true that you're my real grandma? Yes, I am, my beautiful grandson. And this must be Emma. Elizabeth looked at the baby in Sarah's arms. Emma, only 8 months old, didn't understand the situation, but smiled at Elizabeth with the typical ease of babies. Uncle George watched the scene with a mixed expression of sadness and resignation. Elizabeth, do you want to come in to talk? It was a difficult offer for him to make, but a necessary one. The 4 adults sat in the simple living room of the house, while Tyler played on the floor with Emma. The tension was palpable. George, I didn't come here to fight or to take Sarah from you, Elizabeth began. I came to recover the lost time with my daughter and to meet my grandchildren. I know you hate me for what I did, George replied, but I truly believed I was protecting Sarah. Protecting her from what? From her own mother's love? You had abandoned her once, Elizabeth. How could I be sure you wouldn't abandon her again? Because I changed, because I managed to stabilize my life, because I never stopped fighting for her. Sarah intervened before the argument could escalate. Enough. What's past is past. Now I want to know how we move forward. Everyone was silent for a moment. Sarah, Elizabeth finally said, the bank account has been in your name for years. The money is yours. I also have some assets I would like to leave to you and your children. Mom, I don't want your money. I want my mother back. You can have both, daughter. The money can help you give a better life for Tyler and Emma. It can pay for education. It can provide security. Uncle George shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Sarah has always had everything she needed here with me. George, You did the best you could with what you had, Elizabeth acknowledged, and I'm grateful that you took care of her when I couldn't. But now she needs more opportunities. What kind of opportunities? Tyler could study at a better school in the city. Sarah could go to college. Emma could have a guaranteed future. Sarah looked around the simple house where she lived. It was comfortable and had everything she needed, but Elizabeth was right. Her options were limited in the countryside, especially for her children's education. I don't want to leave here, Sarah said. This place is our home now, but I accept getting to know you and your family better. Of course, daughter. We can visit each other regularly, and you can use the money however you want, even if it's just for security. And if I wanted to work with you at the tailoring shop, Sarah asked, surprising everyone, including herself, would you be interested? I've always liked sewing, and if I could work part-time, I could earn extra income without having to leave the property. Elizabeth smiled, clearly moved by the possibility. That would be wonderful, daughter. I have so much to teach. Uncle George watched the conversation with a mixture of pride and melancholy. He knew he was gradually losing Sarah, but he also recognized that she deserved more opportunities. Sarah, he finally said, your Aunt Dorothy always said that one day you would fly away from here. I think that day has come. I'm not flying away, Uncle. I'm just spreading my wings. During the following weeks, Sarah established a new routine. She visited Elizabeth twice a week, learning advanced sewing techniques and getting to know the mother she had lost. Elizabeth, in turn, visited the farm on weekends, bringing Robert to meet the extended family. Robert proved to be a kind and patient man, who was genuinely happy to have Sarah and the grandchildren as part of his life. He had grandchildren of his own and immediately understood the complex family dynamic that was forming. Tyler adapted quickly to the presence of his new grandmother, especially after Elizabeth began teaching him how to use a child's sewing machine she had bought especially for him. Emma, still a baby, simply absorbed the presence of more people who loved her. Access to the bank account brought a financial security Sarah had never experienced. She used part of the money to renovate the house, installing solar power and improving the water system. She saved the rest for the children's education and emergencies. The relationship with Uncle George took more time to heal. He clearly felt guilt for the decades of separation he had caused, but also resentment at no longer being the sole parental figure in Sarah's life. Family therapy, paid for with the money from Elizabeth's account, helped everyone navigate the complex emotions. What hurts me the most, George confessed in one session, is knowing I caused so much suffering trying to avoid suffering. George, Elizabeth replied, you gave Sarah something I couldn't give her at that time, stability and a loving home. It wasn't all a mistake. But I deprived her of her biological mother's love. And now she has both. She has you who raised her, and she has me who always loved her from afar. Sarah held both their hands as they spoke, symbolizing the bridge she herself had become between two worlds that had seemed incompatible. 6 months after the discovery of the letters, Sarah had established a new normal in her life. She worked at Elizabeth's tailoring 3 times a week, earning an income that, combined with the rent from a small part of the rural property, gave her complete financial independence. Tyler had started at a private school in Boulder, making the commute with Sarah on the days she worked in the city. Emma grew up surrounded by an extended family that included Uncle George, Elizabeth, Robert, and Robert's half-siblings whom she had met. "Mom," Tyler said one afternoon as Sarah sewed on the porch, "are you happy now?" The simple question made Sarah stop and reflect. Happiness had been an elusive concept for so long in her life. "I am, my love. For the first time in a long time I feel complete. Because you found Grandma Elizabeth. Because I discovered I have more love around me than I ever imagined. And because I learned that family isn't just who raises you, but also who never stops loving you, even from afar." Tyler nodded with the seriousness typical of children who mature early due to circumstances. "I'm happy too. Now I have 2 homes, here at the farm with Uncle George, and there in the city with Grandma Elizabeth and Grandpa Robert. 2 homes and lots of love," Sarah confirmed, kissing her son's forehead. That night, After putting the children to bed, Sarah returned to the underground cabin that had changed her life. She organized all of Elizabeth's letters in chronological order and stored them in a special box she had bought for that purpose. The cabin had now become a place of reflection for her, a place where she could process all the changes in her life. She installed a comfortable chair inside and a small bookshelf with a few books. While organizing the letters, she found one she hadn't fully read yet. It was one of the oldest, from when she was just 4 years old. "Sarah, my star, today I saw you playing in the yard of George's house. You were making little sandcastles and laughing so much. My heart filled with joy to see you so happy, but it also broke because I can't be there playing with you. I promise that one day we will make sandcastles together, my daughter. One day I will be able to be the mother you deserve. Until then, know that every one of your laughs echoes in my heart. With all my love, Mother Elizabeth." Sarah cried reading those words, imagining a young Elizabeth watching from afar the happy moments of the daughter she couldn't embrace. But they were tears of healing, not of sadness. Outside the cabin, she heard voices in the main yard. Elizabeth had arrived for another one of her regular visits, bringing Robert and a bag of sweets for the children. Uncle George was coming out of his house in the back to greet them, a scene that had become natural but still moved her. Sarah put away the letter and walked toward the house, where her family, all of it complete and complex, awaited her. "Sarah," Elizabeth called to her as she saw her approaching. "I brought those new fabrics you wanted to see. And I made a cornbread cake," Robert added. "Tyler said it's his favorite." "I'm glad you're here," Sarah smiled. "Emma was asking for Grandma Elizabeth." "An 8-month-old baby doesn't ask anything," Uncle George grumbled, but he was smiling. "Her heart asks," Elizabeth defended, picking up her granddaughter. They all sat on the wide porch, sharing the cake and watching Tyler play in the yard. It was a simple domestic scene, but one that represented years of healed pain, secrets revealed, and love that had finally found its way back. "Elizabeth," Sarah said suddenly. "Thank you." "For what, dear?" "For never giving up on me. For continuing to love me even when you couldn't see me. For waiting so long to have your daughter back." Elizabeth held Sarah's hand, squeezing gently. "A mother's love is like that, dear. It has no expiration date. No matter how many years pass, no matter how many obstacles there are, a mother loves forever." Uncle George shifted in his chair, clearly moved. "Elizabeth, I'm sorry for keeping you apart for so long. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I see that—" "George," Elizabeth gently interrupted him, "you did what you thought was best at the time, and you raised our girl with love. That's what matters now. Our girl, our girl. You raised her, I gave birth to her. But we both love her. That makes us family, don't you think?" The word family echoed in Sarah's mind. What a complex and beautiful concept. Family wasn't just blood, wasn't just who raised you, wasn't just who was present. Family was everyone who loved unconditionally, who sacrificed for love, who forgave and was forgiven. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. A week later, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. A lawyer from New York was looking for her to discuss matters related to her grandmother Margaret's inheritance. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Eskel, Patricia Anderson. I represent the estate of your grandmother Margaret Mitchell. There are some documents that need to be discussed with you." Sarah was confused. She thought all inheritance matters had been settled when she received the rural property. "What kind of documents?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in person. Could you come to my office in New York this week?" Intrigued, Sarah scheduled a meeting for the following Friday. Elizabeth offered to accompany her, and the two made the trip together. The lawyer's office was in an elegant part of New York. Escura's Patricia was a middle-aged woman, serious but cordial. "Mrs. Mitchell, your grandmother Margaret left specific instructions that these documents were only to be given to you after you discovered the truth about your origin." "How did she know I would find out?" "Apparently she planned everything carefully. She left detailed instructions about the cabin, the letters, and this meeting." Esker Patricia handed over a sealed envelope with Sarah's name, written in Grandma Margaret's handwriting. My dear Sarah, if you are reading this letter, it means you have finally found Elizabeth's letters and discovered the truth about your family. I always knew this day would come, and I hope I lived long enough to see your reunion with your mother. Elizabeth is a good woman who made mistakes in her youth, but who has always loved you deeply. George is also a good man who loves you, even though he made questionable decisions. Now that you know the whole truth, you need to know about another secret I've kept all these years. Your paternal grandmother also looked for you all these years. Sarah stopped reading, her heart racing. Paternal grandmother? She looked at Elizabeth. Did you know about this? No, dear. Your grandmother Margaret never told me. Sarah continued reading. Your father, Sarah, is named Edward Harrison. He was married when he got involved with Elizabeth, but he divorced 2 years after you were born. He always knew of your existence and tried to make contact several times. His wife at the time, Marcia Harrison, found out about you and never accepted it. But when Edward divorced, he began searching for you. George also pushed him away, claiming you didn't need more confusion in your life. Edward then came to me and asked me to keep some things for you, in case you ever met. Esker's Patricia Anderson has these documents. Edward left a letter and some assets for you. He passed away 3 years ago, but left clear instructions about his wish for you to know that you were loved by him too, even from afar. Sarah, my dear granddaughter, I know these discoveries can be overwhelming, but I wanted you to know that you were loved by more people than you imagine. Elizabeth, George, me, and even Edward. We all loved you in our own way. Use this information to heal, not to reopen wounds. Forgive when you can, love always, and be happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. With eternal love, Grandma Margaret. Sarah was silent for several minutes, processing the information. She had a father who had searched for her and had already passed away. Another lost chance, more years of unnecessary separation. There are more documents, Esker Patricia Anderson said gently. Your father left a letter for you and a considerable inheritance. Elizabeth held Sarah's hand as she opened the letter from the father she never knew. Sarah, my daughter, if you are reading this letter, it means the truth has finally come out. My name is Edward Harrison, and I am your father. I know this discovery may be shocking, especially if I am no longer alive when you read it. I want you to know that the greatest sadness of my life was not being able to meet you. When I found out Elizabeth was pregnant, I was in an unhappy marriage and didn't have the courage to publicly acknowledge paternity. This cowardice haunted me for the rest of my life. After I divorced, I tirelessly tried to find you. I hired investigators, searched through records offices, spoke with social workers. When I finally discovered where you lived, George threw me out of the house, saying you were happy, and I would only cause problems. I respected his decision at the time, thinking he was right. But I never stopped thinking about you. I followed your life from afar through Margaret, who was the only person who kept in touch with me. Sarah, I built a manufacturing company thinking of you. Every piece sold, every profit made, everything was done with the day in mind when I could meet my daughter and give her the life she deserved. The company is worth a lot of money today, and I leave it all to you. It is not compensation for the lost years. Nothing can compensate for that. It is just my way of ensuring that you and your children have security and opportunities. But more than money, I want to leave my love. You were loved intensely by a father who could never hug you, but who carried your image in his heart until his last day. Forgive me for not being braver when I was young. Forgive me for not insisting more when I tried to find you, and know that wherever I am now, I am happy knowing that you have finally learned your complete story. With eternal love, Edward Harrison, your father. Sarah cried silently as she read. Elizabeth wept alongside her, equally moved by the discovery. Esker Anderson, Sarah finally said. What company was that? Harrison Manufacturing. It's one of the largest clothing suppliers for retail chains in the state of New York. Your father left a detailed valuation of the assets. The lawyer handed over a folder with financial documents. Sarah opened it and saw numbers she couldn't fully process. $2.5 million in total assets, Esker and Anderson explained, including the company, real estate, and financial investments. Sarah had to lean on the chair. It was enough money for several generations of her family to live comfortably. There's also a special clause your father included in the will, the lawyer continued. If you decide to keep the company running, there's an additional fund for expansion and modernization. He hoped you could turn the company into a bridge between your new life and your family history. I don't know anything about running a business, Sarah said, frightened by the responsibility. You don't have to know alone, Elizabeth interjected. We have a whole lifetime to learn, and you have my experience in tailoring. You have Robert, who understands business. And there's a team of competent managers already working at the company, Esker and Anderson added. Your father left instructions for them to guide you through the transition, if you decide to accept the inheritance. Sarah looked out the office window, watching the bustle of New York below. In a few weeks, her life had completely changed. From a single mother struggling to survive on a rural property, she had become the heir to a considerable fortune. I need time to process all this, she said. Of course, there's no rush. The documents will remain here until you decide how you want to proceed. During the trip back to Aspen, Sarah and Elizabeth talked about the implications of the new discovery. Honey, are you scared? Very. It's too much responsibility. And at the same time, it's sad to know I had a father who loved me, but I never got to meet. Edward seems to have been a good man who made mistakes in his youth, just like I did. Why did all the adults in my life make decisions for others without asking what I wanted? Because they believed they were protecting you. It was a different time, Sarah. People thought children shouldn't be confused with complicated family situations. And in the end, the confusion was greater because I found out everything too late. But you found out, and now you can make conscious choices about your future. When they arrived at the farm, they found Uncle George playing with Tyler in the backyard, while Emma slept in a hammock on the porch. The domestic scene contrasted sharply with the day's revelations. How was the meeting? George asked when he saw them arrive. Sarah decided to be direct. I found out my father also searched for me for years, and that you also kept him away. The color drained from George's face. He sat down heavily in a porch chair. Edward Harrison, did you know him well? He showed up here a few times when you were a teenager. Elegant man, driving an expensive car, talking about giving you a better life. And what was the problem? The problem was he had abandoned you as a baby, showed up years later wanting to play father as if nothing had happened. Sarah sat down beside him. Uncle, you made many decisions for me. You kept my mother away, you kept my father away, you hid important information. Because I wanted to protect you, George exploded. You were happy here, Sarah. You were a cheerful girl, a good student, you had friends. Why stir all that up? Because it was my right to know the truth. Tyler stopped playing and approached, sensing the tension in the conversation. Mom, is everything okay? Yes, my love. The adults are talking about important things. Is Grandpa George sad? Sarah looked at the man who had raised her. He was old, tired, and clearly regretful of his choices. She felt a wave of compassion for him. Tyler, Grandpa George did some things that weren't right, but always with the intention of protecting me. Sometimes adults make mistakes even when they want to do the right thing. Like when I broke the vase trying to help clean the house. Exactly like that, my love. George smiled sadly at Tyler. Your grandpa tried to help but ended up breaking some important things. But Mom wasn't mad at me when I broke the vase. She was sad, but she forgave me. The child's innocence brought a new perspective to the situation. Sarah knelt down to Tyler's level. That's true. Sometimes we are sad about people's choices, but that doesn't mean we stop loving them. She looked at George. Uncle, I am sad and confused by your decisions, but I don't stop loving you because of it. You raised me with care, gave me a home, taught me important values. That will never change. George began to cry, silent tears of relief and regret. Sarah, if I could go back in time. But you can't. None of us can. We can only decide how to move forward." Elizabeth, who had been observing the conversation in silence, approached and placed a hand on George's shoulder. "George, we all make mistakes trying to protect those we love. The important thing is to recognize it and try to fix what we still have time to fix." "How can I fix 25 years of separation?" "By supporting Sarah in the decisions she will make from now on, by being present in her life and her grandchildren's lives, by accepting that she now has a larger family." That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Sarah sat alone on the porch, trying to organize her thoughts. In just a few weeks, she had discovered that she had a living mother who had always loved her, that she had a father who had looked for her but had passed away, that there was money saved for her for decades, that she had inherited a multi-million-dollar company, that her grandmother had orchestrated everything so the truth would be revealed. It was a lot of information to process. Part of her wanted to return to the simplicity of the life she had before, when her biggest problems were paying the bills and taking care of the children. But another part realized that these discoveries opened infinite possibilities for her and her children. Tyler could study at the best schools. Emma could have all the opportunities Sarah never had. The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. "Sarah, it's Elizabeth. I couldn't sleep. Are you okay?" "Hi, Mom. I can't sleep either. It's a lot to process. Do you want to talk? I can come there or you can come here." "Actually, I'd like to see you and Robert tomorrow. I need advice about this company." "Of course, honey. Robert has business experience. He can help you understand the situation better." "Mom?" "Yes. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be your mother." After hanging up, Sarah felt calmer. Regardless of the discoveries and the decisions she would have to make, she knew she now had a solid support network: Elizabeth, Robert, and even Uncle George, despite his mistakes. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a new determination. She would go to Boulder to talk to Robert about the company, and then she would make some important decisions about her future. She found Robert at Elizabeth's shop, analyzing some financial papers in the makeshift office in the back. "Sarah, Elizabeth told me about the inheritance. What a complex situation. Robert, can you help me understand if it's worth keeping this company running? Let's analyze it together. Did you bring the documents?" Sarah handed over the folder the lawyer had given her. Robert examined the numbers carefully, making notes on a sheet of paper. "Sarah, this company is a solid business. It has established clients, experienced employees, positive cash flow. Your father built something valuable, but I know nothing about running a company. You don't need to know everything on the first day. You can start gradually, learning from the team that's already there, and you can always count on specialized consulting. Do you think I should accept? I think you should visit the company first, meet the employees, understand how it works, then decide." Elizabeth appeared at the office door. "Honey, I had lunch and thought of something. What if the three of us went to New York tomorrow? You could see the company. I could see how they work, and Robert could give a professional opinion. It would be good to have you with me." Then it's settled. I'll call Escadra Patricia Anderson and schedule a visit to the company. The trip to New York the next day was filled with anticipation. Harrison Manufacturing was located in an industrial area on the east side, in a modern and well-organized warehouse. Mr. William, the general manager who had worked with Edward for 15 years, greeted them at the entrance. "Mrs. Mitchell, it's an honor to finally meet you. Your father spoke of you often." "He talked about me?" "Constantly. He had a picture of you on his desk. He said that one day he would meet his daughter and she would help take the company into the future." Sarah was moved to learn she had been remembered daily by a father she never knew. "Mr. William, can you show us how the company works?" The tour of the facilities was revealing. The company employed about 80 people, mainly women from the region who worked on industrial sewing machines. Production ranged from basic clothing to more elaborate pieces for department store chains. "Your father always emphasized good working conditions and fair wages," Mr. William explained. "We have one of the lowest employee turnover rates in the area." Elizabeth observed the machines and techniques with a professional eye. "Sarah, this is much more advanced than our little shop. Imagine the possibilities if you decide to accept. What are the main challenges for the company today? Robert asked the manager. Mainly competition with cheaper imported products. We need to innovate, perhaps invest in differentiated product lines. Differentiated products like sustainable clothing, lines of artisanal work, partnerships with small regional suppliers. Your father was studying these possibilities before he passed. Sarah had a sudden idea. What if we created a line that connected industrial production with artisanal work? Small tailoring shops like my mother's providing special finishes for the larger production? Mr. Williams smiled. Exactly the type of innovation your father would propose. You have his vision for business. After the visit, the three gathered at a nearby cafe to discuss their impressions. Sarah, that company has immense potential, Robert said, and you clearly have an affinity for the business. But it's so different from my life on the farm. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can split your time, create a routine that works for you and the children. And I can help with the artisanal sewing part, Elizabeth added. We can create a network of small tailoring shops supplying the larger company. Sarah visualized the possibility, keeping her life on the farm, working part-time at the company, creating a bridge between the rural and urban worlds, between artisanal and industrial production. I'll accept, she decided, but with a few conditions. What are they? First, I want to keep my home on the farm. Second, I want the company to invest in social projects for the rural region of Aspen. Third, I really want to create this network of artisanal tailoring shops. Elizabeth smiled proudly. Your first business decision is already about helping other people. Your father would be proud. When they returned to Aspen that night, Sarah felt more confident about the future. She had found a way to honor the legacy of the father she never knew, use the resources to help other people, and still maintain the simple life she loved. Uncle George was waiting on the porch, eager to hear about her day. So, are you going to accept the inheritance? I am, but I'm not moving to New York. I'll split my time between here and there. And the children? Tyler will go to a good school in Boulder. Emma will grow up here on the ranch, breathing fresh air and playing in the dirt. And you, if you want, can help me manage the rural side of the social projects. George looked surprised and moved. You want my help? Of course I do. You know the region, you know the people, you know how things work here. I need your experience. After everything I did. Uncle, you made mistakes trying to protect me, but you also taught me important values. Honest work, simplicity, love for the land. That will help me make good decisions with this company. In the following weeks, Sarah immersed herself in the process of taking over the inheritance. She hired a financial manager to help her with the more technical aspects, but insisted on learning personally about every aspect of the business. Her first initiative was to create the Rural Hands Project, a network of artisanal sewing cooperatives in small towns around Aspen. Elizabeth was put in charge of identifying and training the seamstresses, while Sarah negotiated contracts with Harrison Manufacturing to incorporate artisanal elements into their product line. Tyler adapted well to his new school in Boulder, commuting with Sarah on the days she worked in the city. He even started to show interest in the sewing machines, displaying a natural aptitude for understanding how things worked. Emma, still a baby, simply absorbed all the changes with the typical adaptability of her age. She was always surrounded by people who loved her. Sarah, Elizabeth, Robert, Uncle George, and now also the company employees who had grown fond of the boss's daughter. 6 months after discovering the letters, Sarah organized a party at the ranch to celebrate Emma's first birthday. It was also a celebration of everything that had changed in their lives. The party brought together different worlds: rural neighbors from Aspen, employees from the New York company, the new partners from the Rural Hands Project, Elizabeth and Robert, Uncle George, and even Eskerton, Patricia Anderson, who had become a friend as well as a lawyer. Tyler ran around the yard with other children, Emma crawled on the grass surrounded by adults vying for her attention, and Sarah watched it all with a feeling of wholeness she had never experienced before. Sarah, Elizabeth approached as she contemplated the party. Are you happy? More than happy, Mom. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I've finally found my place in the world. What place is that? The place of someone who connects different people and worlds, The company connects industrial and artisanal production. The social project connects the countryside and the city. My family connects the past and the present. Elizabeth hugged her daughter, moved by her wisdom. You've become the woman I always dreamed you would be. Because you never gave up on me. Because you gave me roots through the letters, even when you couldn't be there. Uncle George approached the two of them, carrying Emma in his arms. Sarah, I want to apologize once more for... Uncle, she gently interrupted him. No more apologies. You are part of my story, my values, the person I've become. I don't want to relive the mistakes of the past anymore. I want to build the future. What future do you see for us? Sarah looked around the party, seeing all the important people in her life gathered together. I see Emma growing up surrounded by love and opportunities. I see Tyler becoming an upright man who knows his roots. I see you teaching your great-grandchildren about the land and simple values. I see Mother Elizabeth being a present and caring grandmother. I see a company that honors my father's memory, helping other families. And for you, Sarah, for me, I see a life of purpose, using the resources I received to create opportunities for other people, being a bridge between different worlds, and most importantly, being a present mother for my children, something I know how to do because I had examples of love, even when they were separated from me. The party continued late into the night. When everyone had left, Sarah sat on the porch with Tyler, who was tired but still excited about the day. Mom, when I grow up, will I work at the company too? If you want to, my love, but you can choose any path that makes you happy. I want to learn everything, about the land like Grandpa George, about sewing like Grandma Elizabeth, about business like you. Sarah smiled, realizing that Tyler had naturally absorbed the idea that he could be many things at once. Good idea. The more things you know, the more you can help people. How do you help people with the company? The company provides jobs for many families. The artisanal sewing project helps women have their own income, and with the money we earn, we can invest in social projects. And does that make you happy? Very happy, my son. Tyler fell asleep in his mother's lap, tired but content. Sarah carried him to his room, thinking about how her life had completely transformed since the discovery of the underground cabin. From that small door hidden in the hill had come not just letters and secrets, but an entire new identity. She had discovered she was the daughter of two people who had loved her unconditionally, even from a distance. She had inherited resources that allowed her to help other people. She had found a purpose that connected her personal history with social impact. Before sleeping, Sarah returned one last time to the underground cabin. Now she kept there not only the original letters from Elizabeth, but also the letter from her father Edward, photos of the extended family, and company documents. It had become a family archive, a place for reflection and gratitude. She picked up the first letter she had found months ago and reread it. My dear Sarah, today you turn 2 and I couldn't be there to sing happy birthday. I know you are well cared for, but my heart breaks every day I'm away from you. One day I will explain everything, my daughter. Until then, know that you are loved more than the stars in the sky. Your mother who never forgets, Elizabeth. Now she understood the weight of those words. Elizabeth had kept the promise to explain everything, and Sarah had discovered that she really was loved more than the stars in the sky, not only by Elizabeth, but by Edward, by Uncle George, by Grandma Margaret, and now by a whole extended family she had built. The discovery of the underground cabin had not only revealed secrets of the past, it had opened doors to a future she could never have imagined alone. As she walked back home under the starry sky of Aspen, Sarah smiled, thinking of the irony. She had spent years feeling abandoned and alone, when in fact she was surrounded by love on all sides. Sometimes love just needs to find its way through time and circumstances. The underground cabin had held more than letters. It had held hope, possibilities, and most importantly, proof that true love always finds a way to manifest itself, even through the most difficult obstacles. 1 year after the discovery of the letters, Sarah had established a new, stable routine. She spent 3 days a week in New York managing the company, 2 days in Boulder working with Elizabeth on developing the craft projects, and 2 days at the ranch taking care of the family and the rural projects. The Rural Hands project had grown beyond her initial expectations. It now included not only tailoring, but also organic food production, woodcrafts, and even sustainable rural tourism. 40 families in the region had an additional source of income thanks to the partnerships with Harrison Manufacturing. Tyler, at 10 years old, had become a sort of junior ambassador for the project. He would take visitors to see the ranch, explain sustainable agriculture, and even help with translations when international buyers interested in the craft line came. Emma, now almost 2, walked through the fields with the confidence of someone who knows every stone on the path. She spoke a few words in English, but she already recognized the sound of sewing machines as something familiar and comforting. "Sarah," Elizabeth said one morning as they worked together in the new workshop they had built attached to the store in Boulder, "I have a proposal for you." "What is it?" "Robert and I are thinking of moving to Aspen. We want to be closer to you and the grandchildren, and the pace here in the city is too hectic for our age." Sarah stopped sewing and looked at her mother. "You would really do that?" "Why not? We can set up a small workshop at the ranch. Robert can help more closely with the administrative side of the projects, and I can spend more time with Emma while you're traveling for work." The idea moved Sarah. Having Elizabeth living nearby would be the complete closing of the circle that had begun with the discovery of the letters. "Where would you live?" "I thought about building a small house on the property, if you allow it. Nothing big, just something comfortable for the 2 of us." "Mum, of course I allow it. In fact, I've always dreamed of having you living close by." "And George? Do you think he would accept our constant presence well?" Sarah laughed. "Uncle George now complains that he doesn't have enough company. Last week he said he misses having an intelligent adult conversation. You would be a blessing for him." The move of Elizabeth and Robert to the ranch happened 2 months later. They built a small but charming house on a rise that overlooked the entire property. The proximity allowed them to truly become a family in the most complete sense of the word. Uncle George, initially apprehensive, soon discovered that having Robert as male company was exactly what had been missing in his life. The 2 began working together on the sustainable agriculture projects, combining George's experience with the land with Robert's knowledge of management. Elizabeth became the present grandmother she had always dreamed of being. She spent entire mornings teaching Emma to recognize plants, afternoons telling stories, and evenings helping Tyler with his school homework. "Mom," Tyler said one of those evenings while getting help with homework, "Grandma Elizabeth is different from Grandpa George." "How so, my love?" "Grandpa George teaches me about how things have always been done. Grandma Elizabeth teaches me about how things can be done differently." The observation impressed Sarah with its maturity. Tyler was learning that tradition and innovation could coexist harmoniously. "And which do you prefer?" "I like both ways. I think I need both to be complete." Sarah hugged her son, proud of his early wisdom. The child had intuitively understood something that many adults took decades to learn, that we can honor the past while building the future. The success of the projects began to attract external attention. Magazines specializing in sustainability did features on Harrison Manufacturing and its innovative network of craft partners. Universities sent students to do internships and research on the social business model. Sarah was invited to speak at events about women's entrepreneurship and sustainable rural development. Initially hesitant to expose herself publicly, she gradually accepted some invitations, realizing she could inspire others with her story. "Mr. William," she said to the company manager in a monthly meeting, "I want to create a scholarship program for employees' children." "Excellent idea. Your father always talked about investing in education. But not just traditional scholarships. I want to include technical courses in tailoring, design, administration. Create a bridge between formal education and the practical skills our company values." That would be revolutionary in the sector. "My father built this company thinking about the future. I want to continue that legacy." The scholarship program was launched on the 2nd anniversary of the discovery of the letters. Sarah chose the date purposefully as a way to honor not only Edward, but the entire chain of love that had made her journey possible. At the launch ceremony, she addressed the employees and their families. 2 years ago, I discovered I was surrounded by love from all sides, even when I felt alone. I discovered I had a mother who never stopped loving me, a father who built a legacy thinking of me, and a family that protected me even when making mistakes. The audience listened attentively, many moved by the story they already partially knew. This company is more than a business. It's proof that love finds ways to manifest itself through time and circumstances. Today, through this scholarship program, that love extends to your sons and daughters. After the ceremony, an employee named Sandra approached Sarah. "Miss Sarah, can I tell you something?" "Of course, Sandra. When your father was alive, he always talked about the daughter he would one day meet. He said he built everything thinking of her. Now seeing you here doing these good things for us, I understand why he was so sure." "Sure of what?" "That you would continue his work, but in an even better way. He said a daughter of parents who love deeply always learns to love deeply too." Sandra's words echoed in Sarah's mind for weeks. The idea that love multiplies and is passed down through generations made her reflect on what kind of legacy she was leaving for Tyler and Emma. She decided to create an even more ambitious project, the Integrated Rural Development Center of Aspen. It would be a space combining a technical school, a research center, a cultural space, and a rural business incubator. "Sarah, this is a 10-year project," Robert warned when she presented the idea. "Exactly. A project that Tyler and Emma can help develop when they grow up, if they want to. And if they're not interested. Then it will be my contribution to the community that welcomed me. But something tells me they will be interested. They are growing up seeing the positive impact we can have on people's lives." The center project was approved by the city and began development on a 5-hectare area donated by Sarah adjacent to the family farm. The construction would take 2 years, but activities started immediately in temporary facilities. Tyler, now 11, volunteered to help with computer classes for adults held on Saturdays. Emma, at 3, attended the center's daycare, playing with other children from the region while their mothers attended vocational courses. "Mom," Tyler said one night, after a particularly busy Saturday at the center, "I understood something." "What did you understand?" "Why you were sad before finding Grandma Elizabeth's letters." Sarah was surprised. She didn't remember showing explicit sadness to her children back then. "What do you mean?" "You were trying to take care of everyone by yourself. Now you have help from Grandma Elizabeth, Grandpa Robert, Uncle George, from everyone. That's why you can do more good things." The wisdom of her 11-year-old son was impressive. "You're right. Before I thought I had to be strong alone. Now I've learned that being strong is accepting help and giving others the opportunity to help." "And that's why you created the center? So more people can have help?" "Exactly." That conversation stayed etched in Sarah's memory as the moment she realized Tyler had absorbed not just the family history, but also its deepest values. 3 years after the discovery of the letters, Sarah received an unexpected invitation. The state government wanted to create a statewide program based on the model she had developed in Aspen. "Ms. Mitchell," said the government representative during the meeting in New York, "your project has become a national reference in sustainable rural development. We want to replicate the model in 50 inland cities." Sarah was flattered, but also worried. "How can we ensure the project's essence isn't lost in the expansion? We're counting on your supervision. It would be a consultancy. It wouldn't take you away from Aspen. I need to talk to my family before accepting." The family meeting that night was intense. Everyone had opinions about the government's proposal. "Sarah, it's an opportunity to help thousands of families," Elizabeth argued. "But it's also a lot more responsibility," Uncle George pondered, "and you already work too much." "What do you want to do, dear?" Robert asked. Sarah looked at Tyler and Emma, playing on the living room rug. "I want to accept, but with conditions. I want the program to maintain its focus on human development, not just economic. And I want to ensure each project has local autonomy, not just be an exact copy of ours. Can you manage all that?" "Not alone, but I can form a team with people who share our vision." The decision to accept the government proposal brought significant changes to Sarah's life. She needed to hire a team of consultants, travel more frequently, and further divide her attention between projects. But it also brought unexpected satisfactions. 6 months after the start of the state program, she received the first exchange visit, a delegation of 20 women from different cities who had developed similar projects in their communities. "Ms. Mitchell," said one of the visitors, a seamstress from Charlotte named Jennifer, "my life changed completely after we started the project in our city. Now I have my own workshop and employ 5 other women." "And we all learned based on your model," added another visitor, an artisan from Savannah, but each one adapted it to their local reality. Sarah was moved, realizing that the seed planted by Elizabeth 3 decades ago, watered by the letters kept by Grandma Margaret, and blossomed through Edward's inheritance, was now bearing fruit in dozens of other families. During the meeting with the visiting women, one of them asked a question that made her reflect. "Ms. Mitchell, what was the most difficult moment in this whole journey?" Sarah thought for a few moments. "It was when I discovered I had spent 27 years feeling abandoned, when in fact I was surrounded by love. The pain wasn't from the discovery. It was from realizing how much time I lost thinking I was alone." "And what did you learn from that?" "That sometimes love is present even when we can't see it, and that it's never too late to recognize and accept that love." After the visitors left, Sarah sat alone in the underground cabin that had changed her life. Now the space had been transformed into a small family museum, with Rosa's original letters framed, photos showing the evolution of the projects, and a timeline showing how an accidental discovery had turned into a network of social impact. Tyler appeared at the cabin door. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, my love." He sat down beside her, looking at the letters on the walls. "Mom, when I grow up, will I continue the work you started?" "If you want to, Tyler. But you can choose your own path." "I want to do both. I want to have my own life, but I also want to keep helping people like you do." Sarah hugged her son, realizing he had understood the difference between continuing a legacy and being limited by it. "Will Emma get to choose too?" "Of course. Emma can be anything she wants to be." "Even President of the United States?" Sarah laughed. "Even President of the United States if she wants. Or an astronaut. Or an astronaut. Or a mom like you. Or a mom like me." Tyler was satisfied with the answers, but he had one more question. "Mom, do you think Grandma Elizabeth and Grandpa Edward are happy seeing all that happened?" The question touched Sarah deeply. Elizabeth was alive and could see the fruits of her persistent love, but Edward had passed away before meeting her. "I'm sure they are, my son. The love they planted grew and is helping many people. I think that's all any parent could wish for." They walked back home together, where they found Elizabeth preparing dinner, Emma playing with Robert, and Uncle George organizing some documents from the rural projects. "How was the meeting with the visitors?" Elizabeth asked. "Emotional. Meeting women who are changing their communities using ideas that started here. It's very rewarding." "Your father would be proud," Robert said, "both Edward and George. They both helped shape the woman you are today." Uncle George looked up from the papers. "Sarah, can I tell you something I never told you?" "Of course, Uncle." "Your grandmother Margaret made me promise something before she died." "What?" "She said, 'George, you'll see that in the end everything will work out. Sarah will find her way, and you'll be proud of the woman she becomes.' At the time I thought it was just an old person's talk. Now I see she was right." Sarah was moved by the revelation. "Grandma Margaret really planned everything, didn't she?" "From the beginning. She knew Elizabeth's letters were in the cabin. She knew you would inherit the property. She knew you would discover the truth about Edward. She planned every detail so you would have all the information at the right time." "Why didn't she tell me anything while she was alive?" "Because she knew you needed to discover it for yourself. That the journey of discovery would shape your character as much as the discoveries themselves." Elizabeth, who was listening to the conversation while cooking, added, "Margaret told me once, Elizabeth, our Sarah is going to be special because she will know how to value love when she finally finds it. Someone who grows up thinking everything is guaranteed sometimes doesn't learn to appreciate." Grandma Margaret's wisdom still amazed Sarah, even years after her death. Each new revelation showed how the old lady had carefully orchestrated a chain of events that would result in the healing of family wounds and the building of a legacy of social impact. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Sarah wrote in her personal diary, a habit she had developed after discovering the letters. "Today marks 3 years since I found the letters in the cabin. 3 years that changed not only my life, but the lives of hundreds of other people. I learned that true love knows neither distance nor time. I learned that family is built not only of blood, but of daily choices of care and presence. I learned that a legacy is not what we leave for our children, but what we build with our children. Elizabeth gave me life and unconditional love. Edward gave me resources and an example of entrepreneurial vision. George gave me values and daily care. Margaret gave me wisdom and a lesson in long-term planning. Each, in their own way, contributed to me becoming who I am today. Now my responsibility is to use all these gifts to continue building bridges between past and future, between tradition and innovation, between family love and social impact." Tyler and Emma are growing up in a family that knows how to value both roots and possibilities. I hope that one day they will write in their own diaries about how the love they received inspired them to build a better world for their own children. The underground cabin that revealed our secrets is now a symbol that sometimes the greatest discoveries are hidden right beneath our feet, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. 4 years after the discovery of the letters, Sarah received an invitation that surprised her. An American university wanted to study the model she had developed and invite her to an international lecture on family values-based rural development. "Mom, are you going to accept?" Tyler asked when he heard about the invitation. "I don't know, it's in the United States. It would be my first international trip. But you can tell our story to people all over the world." Tyler's excitement was contagious, but Sarah still had reservations. "It's a big responsibility to represent not just our project, but the United States." "Sarah," Elizabeth intervened, "your story is universal. Anyone in the world can relate to a daughter searching for her mother, or a mother who never gives up on her love for her daughter." After much reflection, Sarah decided to accept. The trip would be her first time leaving the United States, but she would take with her a presentation that told not just about numbers and results, but about love, persistence, and second chances. The lecture at Harvard University was a milestone. Sarah presented to an audience of 200 people, including professors, students, and representatives of international organizations. "My story began in a small underground cabin in Aspen, United States," she began. "But I believe it ends here, sharing with you the proof that love and determination can transform not just families, but entire communities." During the presentation, she showed before and after photos, the simple property she had inherited, the company she had learned to manage, the development center she had created, the women who had been helped by the projects. "But the numbers don't tell the whole story," she continued. "Behind every successful project, there is a mother who can better feed her children, a young woman who was able to study, a family that discovered its own ability to start a business." The audience was visibly moved. During the Q&A session, a professor raised her hand. "Ms. Mitchell, what advice would you give to other women who are trying to create social impact but feel overwhelmed by the responsibility?" Sarah thought about the question, remembering how she felt a few years ago. "Don't try to do everything alone. I thought being strong meant not needing help. I learned that being strong is creating a network of people who support each other. My project isn't mine, it's ours." After the lecture, several participants approached to talk. A Brazilian student doing his doctorate at Harvard particularly moved her. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm from a small town in rural Kentucky. Your story made me realize that I can return to my region and create something meaningful there, instead of staying here trying to compete in a world that isn't mine." "Exactly," Sarah replied. "Sometimes the greatest innovation lies in applying new knowledge to places we know deeply." The international trip opened new doors, but also reinforced for Sarah that her place was truly in the United States, working with her community. She returned with invitations for international partnerships, but also with the certainty that she wanted to focus on expanding the national impact. Back in Aspen, she found new developments that filled her with pride. Tyler, now 12, had started a sustainability club at school and was organizing a science fair about organic farming. Emma, at 4, was helping Elizabeth teach other children how to plant vegetables. "Mum," Tyler said during the welcome dinner, "while you were away, Emma and I decided something." "What did you decide?" "When we grow up, we want to continue the family's work, but each in our own way." "And what way would that be?" "I want to study environmental engineering and create sustainable technologies for small farmers." Emma said she wants to be a teacher and teach kids about nature. Sarah looked at Emma, who nodded vigorously, agreeing with her older brother's plan. "Those are beautiful dreams, but remember, you can change your minds as many times as you want." "We know," Tyler replied. "But we want to help people, like you do." Elizabeth, who was watching the conversation with a smile on her face, commented, "It seems the legacy is secure for the next generation." "Not just secure," Uncle George added, "but improved. This generation will have opportunities we never even dreamed of." That night, Sarah updated her journal. "I returned from the United States with confirmation that I am on the right path. I met brilliant people, incredible projects, advanced technologies, but nothing moved me more than coming home and hearing my children talk about how they want to build a better future. The lecture at Harvard made me realize that our simple story has the power to inspire people around the world. Not because it is extraordinary, but because it is genuine. It's about real love, real mistakes, real forgiveness, and above all, about real transformations." Tyler and Emma are growing up with a social consciousness I didn't have at their age. They see the impact small actions can have on people's lives, and that is shaping their dreams and ambitions. Elizabeth always says that love multiplies when it is shared. Now I completely understand what she means. The love she planted through the letters multiplied into care for hundreds of families. The love Edward left through the company multiplied into opportunities for work and education. The love George showed through daily care multiplied into solid values I pass on to my children. And now I am seeing that love multiply into a third generation through the dreams and projects Tyler and Emma are beginning to form. The underground cabin revealed much more than secrets of the past. It revealed that love is the most powerful force for creating the future. 5 years after discovering the letters, Sarah faced her first major challenge in the projects. A national economic crisis severely affected the textile sector, and Harrison Manufacturing began having difficulty maintaining contracts with the rural cooperatives. "Sarah, we need to talk about the numbers," Mr. Williams said during an emergency meeting. "We may have to reduce orders for the small tailoring shops. What exactly is our situation? We can keep half of the current contracts or keep all of them, but reduce the amounts paid." It was a difficult decision that would directly affect the income of dozens of families. Sarah asked for a week to think. During these days of reflection, she talked with Elizabeth, Robert, and Uncle George about alternatives. It was Tyler who suggested a surprising idea. "Mum, what if we diversify? Instead of relying solely on the big company, what if the small tailoring shops also sold directly to other customers?" "How so?" "At school, our teacher talked about e-commerce. The seamstresses could sell online, directly to the consumer." Tyler's suggestion inspired Sarah to research other possibilities. She discovered there was a growing market for authentic handmade products, both in the United States and abroad. "Elizabeth," she said excitedly, "what if we created our own brand for the cooperative's products? Something that tells the story of each piece, that connects the buyer with the artisan. It's an interesting idea, but we would need capital to invest in marketing, e-commerce, logistics. We have the money from Edward's inheritance. He built the company thinking about the future, using that money to ensure the cooperative's sustainability would honor his memory." The Hands of the Earth project was launched 3 months later, an online platform that sold the cooperative's products directly to consumers, with information about each artisan, photos of the production process, and stories of the benefiting families. The response was surprising. Within 6 months, Direct sales had become a source of income as important as the contracts with Harrison Manufacturing. Many artisans were able to significantly increase their monthly income. "Sarah," said Jennifer, the seamstress from Charlotte, during a cooperatives meeting, "yesterday I received an order from a lady in New York who bought a dress for her granddaughter. She wrote a letter saying how moved she was to learn my story. It's a feeling no money can buy." "That's what matters most," Sarah replied. "We're not just selling products, we're creating human connections." The platform's success brought new attention to the projects. Sustainable fashion magazines did features, digital influencers began promoting the products, and even international buyers showed interest. Tyler, now 13, had become the family's social media expert, helping the older artisans create profiles on digital platforms and showcase their work. "Mom, Mrs. Louise from Greenville gained 2,000 followers on Instagram in 1 week," he excitedly reported. "How does that affect her sales?" "She's already received direct orders from people who saw her work online. She said she never imagined someone from another state would want to buy her pieces." Emma, at 5 years old, had become the unofficial mascot of the projects. She appeared in the videos Elizabeth made showing the production process, and her childish spontaneity charmed the social media followers. "Grandma Elizabeth," Emma asked during a recording, "why do people on the internet like our clothes so much?" "Because they are made with love, my granddaughter. People feel the difference." "How do they feel it?" "When you wear a garment made with care, you feel more beautiful, more special. It's like receiving a hug through the fabric." Elizabeth's answer went viral, being shared thousands of times with the hashtag or hug through the fabric. The phrase became the unofficial slogan of the Hands of the Earth brand. 6 months after the platform's launch, Sarah received a phone call that would once again change the course of the projects. "Miss Sarah, this is Claudia Baker from Central Fashion, the largest department store chain in the United States. We would like to talk about a partnership." "What kind of partnership?" "We want to create an exclusive line with products from your cooperatives to sell in our stores. We're talking about a contract that could benefit all the artisans in your program." Sarah was excited but cautious. She remembered the problems they had faced with over-reliance on a single client. "I need to speak with the cooperatives before giving any answer." The meeting with representatives from all cooperatives was scheduled for the following week. Sarah presented the proposal from Central Fashion, explaining both the opportunities and the risks. "Ms. Mitchell," said one of the cooperative members, "this is the chance we've always dreamed of, having our work in mall stores." "But," interjected another, "we can't make the same mistake as before, relying on just one client." "What is your suggestion?" Sarah asked. "Accept the partnership, but also keep up the direct sales online and the other contracts. Diversify to become stronger." The collective wisdom of the women impressed Sarah. They had learned from past difficulties and were now thinking strategically about their businesses. The partnership with Central Fashion was signed with clauses guaranteeing autonomy for the cooperatives. The American Roots line launched in 50 stores of the chain with great sales and media success. "Sarah," Elizabeth said one afternoon, as they watched Tyler and Emma play in the backyard, "do you realize what you've built?" "What do you mean?" 6 years ago you were a single mother struggling financially, living isolated on a farm. Today you lead a network of projects that benefits hundreds of families, influences public policy, and inspires people around the world. Sarah reflected on the transformation. Truly, the distance between who she was and who she had become seemed greater than the 6 years that had passed. "But do you know what the most important part of all this is?" she replied. "What?" "That I didn't do anything alone. Every achievement was the result of collaboration, of mutual support, of people who believed in each other. That humility is exactly what makes you a special leader." That evening, Uncle George asked to speak with Sarah in private. "Sarah, there's something I need to tell you before it's too late." "What is it, Uncle?" "I'm having some health issues. Nothing serious, but at my age anything can get complicated. I wanted to take advantage of feeling well to ask for your forgiveness once more." "Uncle, we've already talked about this. Let me finish. I want to ask for forgiveness, not just for the decisions I made about your mother and your father. I want to ask for forgiveness for taking so long to recognize that you were capable of making your own choices. Sarah was moved by her uncle's sincerity. "You know what impresses me most about you," he continued. "It's that even after discovering my mistakes, you never treated me with anger or resentment. You always included me in your projects, always gave me an important role." "Because you are my family, Uncle. And family is for forgiving and including, not for judging and excluding. Your generosity has taught me more about love than 70 years of life had taught me before." They embraced in silence, two people who had gone through deep conflicts but found their way back to family love. The following week, Uncle George had a fall and needed to be hospitalized. It wasn't serious, but at 75, any accident required special care. During the days he was in the hospital, Sarah realized how fundamental his presence had become in the family dynamic. He was the one who took care of the practical details of the farm, who held the institutional memory of the rural projects, who provided the perspective of experience to balance the enthusiasm for innovation. "Tyler," she said to her son, "Grandpa George is going to be fine, but this situation made me think of something important." "What?" "We need to document everything he knows about the land, about the region, about the rural techniques he uses. It's knowledge that can't be lost." "How are we going to do that?" "How about we create an oral history project? We record conversations with Grandpa George and other long-time residents of the region, preserving the memory and traditional knowledge." The idea evolved into the Memories of the Land project, which became part of the activities at the Rural Development Center. Young people from the region would interview elders, recording not just technical information about farming, but also life stories, traditional recipes, and knowledge about medicinal plants. When Uncle George was discharged from the hospital, he was invited to be the project's first official interviewee. "George," said Sarah, as they adjusted the recording equipment, "this is your chance to have your legacy recorded for future generations." "What legacy can I leave? I'm just a simple countryman." "You are the man who raised an abandoned girl, who taught solid values, who cared for the land for decades, who adapted old traditions for modern needs. That is a tremendous legacy." Uncle George's interview was moving. For 3 hours he told stories of the region dating back to the 1960s, explained farming techniques he had learned from his own father, and revealed details about Grandma Margaret's personality that even Sarah didn't know. "Your grandmother was always visionary," he said during the recording. "She saw potential where others only saw problems. For example, when you were born and Elizabeth disappeared, everyone thought raising an abandoned child would be a burden. Margaret said, 'This girl is going to be special. She's going to bring new things to our family.' At the time, I thought it was just an old person's hope. Now I see she was right." "What else did she say about Sarah?" asked Tyler, who was helping with the interview. "She said Sarah would be a bridge between worlds. We didn't understand what that meant. Now I do. She is a bridge between the rural and the urban, between tradition and innovation, between family and community, between the past and the future." Uncle George's words echoed in Sarah's mind for days. The idea of being a bridge between worlds made her reflect on her role not just in the projects, but within the family itself. Tyler was growing up and beginning to question his identity. At 13, he felt torn between the simple country life and the opportunities of the urban world he had discovered through Sarah's projects. "Mom," he said one afternoon, "sometimes I feel like I don't completely fit in anywhere." "How so?" "At school in Boulder, I'm the farm kid. But here in the country, I sometimes feel different from the other local kids because I know other realities." Sarah recognized in her son's anguish something she herself had felt for years. "Tyler, this feeling of being between worlds isn't a problem. It's an advantage." "Why?" "Because you can see the qualities of each world and can help connect them. That's exactly what I did with the projects. I connected rural wisdom with urban opportunities. Do you think that's what I should do when I grow up? I think you should do what makes you happy. But remember, having access to different worlds gives you the chance to build bridges, like Grandpa George said." Emma, though only 5, was naturally absorbing this ability to move between different realities. She was equally comfortable playing in the dirt with the chickens as she was participating in international video calls that Sarah received to present the projects. "Mom," Emma asked on one such occasion, "why do the people on the screen talk differently from us?" "Because they live in different countries, sweetie. Every place has its own language." "But do they understand what you say about our family?" "Yes, they do. Love is a language everyone understands, no matter the country." Emma nodded, satisfied with the explanation, showing an impressive naturalness with the cultural diversity that was part of her routine. At the end of the 6th year after the discovery of the letters, Sarah organized a special party at the farm. It wasn't anyone's particular birthday, but a celebration of what she called a feast of gratitude. She invited all the people who had been important on her journey, the artisans from the cooperatives, company employees, government representatives, rural neighbors, friends from the city, and especially her extended family. During the party, Sarah gave a speech that summarized her learnings. "6 years ago, I discovered in an underground cabin that I was surrounded by love on all sides, even when I felt alone. Today, looking at all of you gathered here, I realize that circle of love has expanded far beyond what I could have imagined." The audience listened attentively, many moved by the stories they already knew, others discovering details for the first time. "I learned that family isn't just who raises us or who we raise. Family is all the people we choose to love and who choose to love us back. And you, each in your own way, are part of my family." Elizabeth, who was in the middle of the audience, wiped away a tear as she watched the daughter she had raised through letters become a woman who inspired hundreds of people. "But what I most want to share today," Sarah continued, "is a lesson I learned from my grandmother Margaret through the discoveries she planned. True love always finds a way to manifest itself, even through obstacles and time." Tyler and Emma were seated in the front row, proud of their mother but also naturally accustomed to this kind of event that was part of their lives. So my invitation to all of you is, plant seeds of love whenever you can. They might take years to grow, they might encounter obstacles along the way, but one day they will blossom and benefit people you can't even imagine. After the speech, Uncle George approached the microphone. At 75, he was more physically frail, but his mind remained sharp and his voice firm. "Sarah gave me the opportunity to speak, and I want to use it to publicly ask for forgiveness for the mistakes I made." The party fell silent, everyone sensing the importance of the moment. "For years, I made decisions for Sarah thinking I was protecting her. In the end, I was only protecting my own fears of losing her. My Sarah, you taught me that protecting someone isn't about hiding the truth, but giving them the strength to face the truth." Sarah approached her uncle and hugged him while the audience applauded. "And to you who are beneficiaries of the projects she created," Uncle George continued, "I want you to know that every opportunity you receive is the fruit of the generous heart of a woman who transformed pain into love and love into action." Jennifer, the seamstress from Charlotte, asked to speak. "Ms. Sarah, on behalf of all of us from the cooperatives, we want to say that you changed our lives in a way we can't even fully explain. It wasn't just the money, it wasn't just the work, it was the dignity. We learned that our work has value, that our story matters, that we can dream big." Jennifer's words were followed by an emotional ovation. Sarah realized she had created something bigger than she had imagined. Not just economic projects, but a network of women's empowerment that was transforming generations. Robert asked to speak next. "I want to speak as someone who entered this story out of love for Elizabeth, but who fell in love with this entire family and these projects. Sarah, you proved that it's possible to do business with profit and purpose, to grow economically without losing human values." Finally, Elizabeth took the microphone. There were tears in her eyes, but also a radiant smile. "My daughter, when I wrote the first letter to you 28 years ago, I dreamed of the day I could hug you and tell you I loved you. I never imagined that one day I would be here, seeing you inspire hundreds of people with your leadership and generosity." The audience was visibly moved. Elizabeth continued, "But do you know what makes me proudest? It's not the professional success, it's not the awards you've won, it's not the money you manage. What makes me proudest is seeing that you raised Tyler and Emma with the same values of love and inclusion that I tried to pass on to you through the letters." Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. She hadn't cried like that in public for years, but the emotion of the moment was too intense. "Mum, Uncle George, Robert, all of you," she said when she managed to compose herself. "Thank you for teaching me that strength doesn't come from being alone, but from being connected. That success isn't individual, but collective, and that love multiplies when it's shared." The party went on late into the night with music, dancing, and many conversations about dreams and future projects. When everyone had finally left, Sarah sat on the porch with her immediate family: Elizabeth, Robert, Uncle George, Tyler, and Emma. "Mum," Tyler said, "I understood something today." "What did you understand?" "Why you always say family is more than blood. All those people at the party treat us like family, even though they're not relatives. And how do you feel about that?" "Happy. It's good to know I have a huge family." Emma, tired but still excited from the party, snuggled into Elizabeth's lap. "Grandma Elizabeth, why was everyone crying today?" "They were tears of joy, my dear. Sometimes we get so happy our eyes fill with water. Like when we cut onions." "Exactly," Elizabeth laughed. "Only instead of onions, it was love making everyone cry." Emma seemed satisfied with the explanation and soon fell asleep in her grandmother's arms. That night, Sarah updated her diary for the last time in that format. "Today marks 6 years since the discovery of the letters. 6 years that completely transformed my life and the lives of so many others. In preparing this celebration, I realized this is no longer just my personal story, but our collective story. The underground cabin revealed secrets that changed a family. But that changed family ended up transforming a community, which transformed a region, which is inspiring a country, and who knows, perhaps helping to change the world." Tyler and Emma are growing up with a perspective I didn't have at their age. They know their individual actions can have a collective impact, that their personal choices can benefit other people, that love is a concrete force for social transformation. Elizabeth can finally be the present mother she always dreamed of being, but she has also become so much more: a mentor to dozens of women, a grandmother to 2 children who adore her, and a partner to a good man who loves her completely. George, despite the mistakes of the past, found redemption through supporting the projects. His traditional knowledge became the foundation for sustainable innovations, and his life experience became documented wisdom for future generations. Robert brought stability and business knowledge to our family, but received in return a sense of purpose he didn't have before. Edward, even though he passed away before knowing me, left a legacy that multiplied far beyond his original expectations. The company he created thinking of a daughter now benefits hundreds of families. And Margaret, our visionary grandmother, orchestrated everything from the start. Every piece she put in the right place, every secret she preserved at the right time, every connection she facilitated even after her death. This is my final entry in this diary, because today I understand this is no longer about my individual journey of discovery. From now on, it's about our collective journey of building. The next chapter of the story will be written by all of us together. The underground cabin has fulfilled its purpose. It revealed truths that healed the past and freed the future. Now it's a symbol that it's worth digging for the truth, even when it's buried under years of silence. And most importantly, it proved that true love has no expiration date. It may be hidden, it may be distant, it may be silenced, but it never ceases to exist, and when it finally finds its way, it can transform not only the one who receives it, but all who witness its power. 7 years after the discovery of the letters, Sarah faced a decision that would test all the values she had built. A European multinational made an offer to buy Harrison Manufacturing for an amount that would guarantee total financial security for her family for several generations. "Sarah," said the company representative during the meeting in New York, "our offer is 3 times the market value of the company. It's a unique opportunity." "And the employees? And the partner cooperatives?" "We would keep the employees for at least 2 years. As for the cooperatives, we would need to assess the economic viability of each partnership." Sarah knew that "assess the viability" was a euphemism for cancelling most contracts. The small rural tailoring shops weren't competitive by a multinational's standards. "I need time to decide," she replied. "Of course, but our offer is valid until the end of the month." The pressure of the decision sparked intense family conversations. Each person had a different perspective. "Sarah," Uncle George argued, "it's security that your children and grandchildren will never need to worry about money." "But Dad," Elizabeth called him that affectionately since they moved to the farm, "it's not just about money. It's about the commitment to the cooperatives." "The cooperatives can survive with other clients," Robert pondered. "Hands of the Earth has already proven that." Tyler, now 14, had clear opinions on the situation. "Mom, you always taught that we shouldn't make decisions thinking only of ourselves. If you sell, what happens to the families who depend on the company?" "That's an important question," Sarah acknowledged, "but I also need to think about your future." "Our future will be better if we learn to make ethical decisions, not just profitable ones," Tyler answered, surprising everyone with his maturity. Emma, at 6 years old, didn't fully understand the situation, but she sensed the family tension. "Mom, why is everyone worried?" "We're deciding if we should sell the company that Grandpa Edward left for us." "And if we sell, what happens?" "We'll have a lot of money, but maybe the people who work with us will lose their jobs." Emma thought for a few seconds, with the seriousness of a child who had grown up hearing conversations about social responsibility. "Then it's better not to sell, right? We can get money in other ways, but if people lose their jobs, they get sad." The simplicity of Emma's childlike logic deeply touched Sarah. Sometimes the most complex decisions have simpler answers than we imagine. That night, Sarah made her decision. She called the multinational representative. "Thank you for the proposal, but we will not sell." "Ms. Mitchell, are you sure? It's a very significant amount." "I'm sure. Our company is worth more than money. It's worth the jobs it creates, the communities it benefits, the legacy it preserves." After hanging up, she felt a peace that confirmed she had made the right decision. "How do you feel?" Elizabeth asked. "Relieved. For a moment I almost let fear of the future make me forget the values of the present." "And what are we going to do to ensure the company keeps growing?" "We'll professionalize it even more, hire competent executives, invest in technology, expand our markets, but always keeping our social mission." Tyler hugged his mother. "I'm proud of your decision." "Why?" "Because you chose what's right instead of what's easy." The decision not to sell brought new challenges, but also new opportunities. Sarah invested part of her personal resources into modernizing the company and hired a team of executives who shared her vision of purpose-driven business. 1 year later, Harrison Manufacturing had become a national benchmark in corporate sustainability. Sales grew by 40%, the number of partner cooperatives doubled, and the company won international awards for social responsibility. "Sarah," said Mr. William during a results meeting, "if we had sold to the multinational, we would never have achieved these numbers. Why? Because we grew with purpose. Our employees work with more dedication because they know they are part of something bigger. Our customers pay more because they value our story. Our partners are more committed because they trust our word." The lesson was clear. Values are not just moral principles, but also competitive advantages when applied consistently. Tyler turned 15, showing more and more interest in the family business, but in a different way than Sarah had expected. Instead of wanting to manage the company, he wanted to study biotechnology to develop sustainable solutions for the textile industry. "Mom, imagine if we could create fully biodegradable fabrics from agricultural waste, or natural dyes that don't pollute rivers." Tyler's passion for sustainable innovation moved Sarah. He had found his personal way to continue the family legacy. "Where do you want to study, honey?" "Berkeley has an industrial biotechnology program, and then I want to do a master's abroad to learn the most advanced techniques." "That's many years of study. But it could revolutionize our industry. Imagine the impact we could have if we managed to produce clothes that don't harm the environment." Emma, at 7, was also developing her interests. She started accompanying Elizabeth on visits to the cooperatives, watching closely how each artisan worked. "Grandma Elizabeth, can I learn to sew too?" "Of course, my granddaughter, but you are too young to use the big machines." "So can I start by sewing by hand?" Elizabeth was moved by her granddaughter's interest. She began teaching Emma basic hand-sewing stitches, and the girl showed a natural talent for working with fabrics. "Sarah," Elizabeth commented one afternoon, "Emma has the hands of an artist. She sees details that adults don't notice. Do you think she'll pursue a career in the field?" "It's too early to tell, but she has an artistic sensibility. Maybe she'll become a fashion designer, maybe a visual artist, or maybe something we haven't even imagined yet." Watching her children develop their own passions and talents, Sarah realized that the family legacy wasn't about continuing the exact same work, but about applying the same values in different areas. On the 8th anniversary of the discovery of the letters, Sarah organized a special meeting with all the cooperatives. She wanted to present an even more ambitious project, the creation of a corporate university focused on sustainability and rural development. "The idea is to offer extension courses, specializations, and even undergraduate degrees in areas related to our work," she explained to the gathered cooperative representatives. "What kind of courses?" asked Jennifer. "Sustainable design, cooperative management, organic farming, digital marketing for artisans, small business administration, courses that empower our communities to be even more self-sufficient." "And would it be free?" "For members of partner cooperatives, yes. For other interested parties, we would charge symbolic fees to help keep the university running." The proposal was met with enthusiasm. In 6 months, the first class of Hands of the Earth University had begun its activities in a renovated area of the Rural Development Center. Tyler, despite still being in high school, had enrolled as an auditor in the Applied Biotechnology course offered by the university. Emma, at 7 years old, attended the art workshops designed for children. "Mom," Tyler said after his first week of classes, "it's amazing to see adults studying with so much enthusiasm. There are people in their 50s asking more interesting questions than my schoolmates." "It's because they know exactly what they'll use the knowledge for," Sarah explained. "They're studying to improve their own lives and their families." The university attracted national attention. Journalists from major outlets did reports on the innovative model of corporate education focused on social development. Other companies began seeking Sarah out for consulting on how to implement similar projects. "Elizabeth," Sarah said one night, after another intense day of work, "sometimes I have the feeling that I'm living someone else's life." "How so?" 8 years ago, I was a single mother worried about paying the bills. Today, I get invitations to speak at Harvard. I run a multi-million-dollar company. I lead projects that benefit thousands of people. And what's the problem? It's not a problem. It's surreal. Sometimes I feel I don't deserve all this." Elizabeth held her daughter's hands. "Sarah, you deserve every opportunity you've earned, but more importantly, you are using those opportunities to help other people. That is the true test of deserving. Do you think Dad Edward would be proud?" "I'm sure he would be. He built a company thinking about the future. You've turned that company into a force for social change. That is far beyond what he could have dreamed." At the end of the 8th year, Sarah reflected on everything that had been built since the discovery of the letters. Harrison Manufacturing had become a sustainability leader in the industry. The Rural Hands Project benefited 150 cooperatives in 8 states. The Hands of the Earth platform sold artisanal products worldwide. The Rural Development Center served 500 families annually. Hands of the Earth University had graduated 200 professionals in 2 years. 5,000 direct and indirect jobs had been created. But beyond the numbers, there were transformations that couldn't be quantified. Restored self-esteem, restructured families, young people who decided to stay in their hometowns instead of migrating, women who discovered their capacity to lead, children growing up valuing both education and traditions. "Tyler," Sarah said during a family dinner, "do you realize you are witnessing history being made?" "How so?" "This whole movement of sustainable economy, valuing artisanal work, corporate education, with a social purpose, you are growing up within something that could change the way the United States does business." "Is that pressure or inspiration?" Tyler asked humorously. "It's context, so you understand the responsibility and the opportunity you have." Emma, who was listening to the conversation while playing with pieces of fabric, looked up. "Mum, when I grow up, will I continue what you started?" "You will do whatever you want, my daughter. but I hope you always do it thinking about how you can help other people. I'm going to make pretty clothes for people who don't have money to buy expensive clothes, Emma announced, with the typical determination of a 7-year-old. Emma's spontaneous declaration made everyone laugh, but also moved them. Even so young, she had already internalized the values of inclusion and generosity that guided the family. That night, Sarah revisited the underground cabin she hadn't entered in months. The space was now a small family museum, but also a place of reflection and gratitude. She picked up the first letter from Elizabeth and read it once more. "My dear Sarah, today you turn 2 and I couldn't be there to sing happy birthday. I know you are well cared for, but my heart breaks every day I'm away from you. One day I will explain everything, my daughter. Until then, know that you are loved more than the stars in the sky." Now, 8 years after the discovery, Sarah finally fully understood the meaning of those words. Elizabeth wasn't just expressing love, but planting a seed of hope that would grow for decades until it became a tree offering shade to hundreds of families. "Thank you, Mother," she said aloud, knowing Elizabeth was in the main house but also addressing the young Elizabeth who had written those letters decades ago. "Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for planting love where others saw only pain." She left the cabin and walked slowly toward the house, watching the lights in the windows where her family was preparing for sleep. Tyler was probably studying for the college entrance exams he would take the following year. Emma perhaps sewing some small project Elizabeth had given her. Elizabeth and Robert talking about the plans for the next day. Uncle George reading a book on his porch. Each of these lights represented not just a person she loved, but also a future of infinite possibilities, built on the solid foundation of family love and shared values. The underground cabin had revealed much more than secrets. It had revealed that true love is the most powerful force in the universe, capable of spanning decades, overcoming obstacles, healing wounds, and most importantly, multiplying for the benefit of people we can't even imagine. Sarah entered the house knowing that the discovery of that small door buried in the hillside hadn't just changed her personal history. It had unleashed a force of transformation that would continue growing through Tyler and Emma, through the cooperatives, through every person touched by the projects, through every life improved by the network of love and opportunity that had been built. And that force would keep expanding, because true love has no range limit or expiration date. It simply grows, multiplies, and always finds new ways to blossom. End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of overcoming and discovery? Do you believe Sarah made the right decisions throughout her journey? How would you react upon discovering family secrets kept for decades? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. We love reading your reflections. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Thank you for your company on another journey.